Hello everybody, welcome to our cookbook club. We are cooking 6 Seasons by Joshua McFaddens today, and as you saw, we are going to make the pasta with the compound butter, the Cacio Pepe compound butter. We're going to make a version that's actually on page 123 in Joshua's cookbook today, and then we're going to also do the Little Jim salad. So we're excited to cook with y'all. This cookbook, if you haven't gotten it yet, is amazing because it really celebrates the seasons, obviously 6 seasons. It breaks it down into 6 seasons and really makes you want to go to the farmer's market and pick great produce that's seasonal and cook seasonally. And so I've learned so many tips reading the cookbook about a variety of different things. And I always am fascinated by the different way that different chefs cook. So I feel like he really has a certain style that comes through in the book. We'll talk about some of it as we cook the recipes, but I hope you get a copy of it. So let's get started with the pasta.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the pasta, and I'm gonna heavily salt the boiling water. And he says to salt it so it tastes like the sea. As salty as the sea. So we're gonna do that, and then it's already boiling, so I'm gonna add my pasta. And while we're waiting for that to cook, I think it's like 10 to 12 minutes, just read your package instructions. We're gonna make the compound butter. Okay, so here's the compound butter I made last night, the Cacio Pepe butter. And what's so great about it is, so I rolled it into a log and I have now put it in the freezer so that I can have it on hand for just something exactly like this. You're making a pasta and adding a dab of this to the pasta to make a nice sauce. Or you can put it on a pat of it on a steak that you've grilled.
Scramble some eggs in it.
Scramble some eggs. You can put it on some eggs.
Toss it with some, vegetables.
Exactly.
Just great seasoning.
It's great seasoning, and it's ready to go. So you just slice a little piece off and add it to whatever dish you'd like. So what we're going to start with is the 2 sticks of room temperature butter, which is very important because it'll be soft and you can mix it around well. And then I've grated my cheese myself. You can buy it grated, but I think it's better if you grate it yourself, and really finely grate it if you can see. It's easier for it to mold into the butter. So we got the Pecorino Romano, which is really important for Cacio Pepe because it's a stronger flavor than just Parmesan. If you only have Parmesan, you can use that, but really the Pecorino makes a huge difference. So I've got the Pecorino, which is like 3/4 of a cup, and 3/4 of a cup of the Parmesan. You just add that into the butter, and then for the peppercorns, I just take what I already have, which is like my normal peppercorn grinder, and it calls for 2 tablespoons. Just take the top off. I put 2 tablespoons in between 2 pieces of paper towel. You can put it in a plastic bag too if you want, or in between parchment paper. And if you have something like this, or if you have a mortar and pestle, you can use that also. And you just kind of, I don't know if you can see me here, but you just kind of,
You want those bigger pieces with the Cacio Pepe. I feel like that's what makes it. So you don't want whole peppercorns,
no.
But you definitely want that bites into like a piece of pepper.
yeah, and it's good to have, like he says, the mix of the fine, more powdery pieces of pepper, and then the bigger bites for this sort of dish.
And if you've never had Cacio Pepe, it is like, if I see it on the menu, I have to order it.
Same.
There's a place in New York City called Supper. It was always my favorite Cacio Pepe. I ordered it every time I went there. But it's just like, you can keep this in your freezer and it can be your go-to, I don't know what's for dinner. You always have something on hand. I think that that's nice.
So see, I'm gonna do it actually a little bit more, but you see how there's different pieces here. There's the fine ground and there's the whole peppercorns. So now you're just gonna add it to your butter and your cheese mixture and mix it all around. Super simple, toss that. And then you're just gonna mix it up and see the butter. Oh, it's so good because it's really room temperature.
Okay, I'm gonna show them the peas while we, Hi. Okay, so one of the things, so we have this sugar snap peas, and if you don't know how to trim them, you just wanna take kind of like each edge off. There's like a strand in the middle. And then what I think is really cool is that he slices it all lengthwise into these really thin slices. So it mimics the shape of the spaghetti or the bucatini or whatever you're using, which I think is great because it all just kind of melds together. So you're gonna put these peas in the water in like the last minute that the pasta is cooking, and it'll just blanch them really quickly. So we'll do that in a few seconds.
Okay, and here's the butter. So see, because it's room temperature, it just really incorporated really nicely. But now, if you want to roll it into a log, then I would say put it in the fridge for like 15-20 minutes just to get it chilled enough where it'll come together and roll into a log. I can show you how to do that in a minute. Or if you want to put it in any sort of vessel, you can put it in a Tupperware container in the fridge if you think you're going to use it quickly. But again, it's nice to have in the freezer.
So this is 2 sticks of butter. This recipe calls for 6 tablespoons, so you'll have lots of extra. So you can use it as is. It doesn't need to be into the log now, but you can use it 6 tablespoons now, and then take the rest and put it in the freezer or in the refrigerator and save it for another use to have on hand.
Okay, so we have about a minute left of the pasta cooking, so I'm going to go ahead and add the peas to blanch them a little bit. Just dump those right in. Give a little stir if you want. Just let those cook for about a minute, and then I'm going to strain the pasta out. Oh, also, you want to take a little bit of your pasta water out before you strain the pasta. So it suggests about a half cup, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out. You want to wait till the very end so that you can get the max amount of starchiness in your water, and that can kind of help thicken your sauces and just make a really, really nice creamy sauce. So let's just take that out and reserve that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and strain it, and then I'll show you how to make the rest. Okay, so I've strained the pasta, and here I have a skillet that I've already done brown the pancetta in, and you just want to skim off some of the fat, leave about a tablespoon, and then reheat your skillet when you're done with the pasta to about medium, just to rewarm the pancetta. And then you're going to dump your peas and your pasta in, and you're going to go ahead and add the butter. And a little at a time, just don't dump it all in there, but a little at a time, you're gonna add in your pasta water just to kind of thicken it up and make a nice sauce. But just start by incorporating the butter, the peas, the pancetta, all that. That's so good.
And I mean, like literally, if you prep everything in advance, I love how quickly this comes together.
It really does. Okay, so I think it needs a little bit of the water now. I'm just gonna add a little bit to start.
And the pasta is actually soaking up the flavors of the butter as it continues to cook over the heat. It's like the same way it absorbs the water, it's continuing to absorb the flavors of the butter and the cheese and the peppercorn in the last few minutes of tossing. That looks good, nice and glossy.
Really good. Okay, so here it is. Looks so good. And now we're just gonna sprinkle a little cheese on top.
And we put some salt in it.
Yeah, and we salted to taste. And there you go. Enjoy.
Okay, so next we're gonna make this Little Jim salad. I found this to be like really cool recipe because it actually has like a lemon cream dressing on it, which I've never seen before, but actually, you know, it's really light compared to a lot of things that are made with like maybe a yogurt or a mayonnaise or something like that. So basically what you do is at the bottom of this, there's 4 cloves of garlic that are peeled and smashed. And then you just put half a cup of heavy cream on top of it. Put it in the refrigerator for like 2 hours and kind of let that garlic flavor marinate into it. And then you basically just are gonna add lemon zest, lemon juice, and then, will you give me a little whisk? And then 2 tablespoons of olive oil to go in with it. And it just really makes this like nice, light, creamy dressing. So, I don't know, it was like heavy cream, not what I was kind of expecting probably. So now I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the dressing. And we're ready to go. Okay, so I've got a salad bowl, and this recipe calls for Little Jim lettuce. So normally it's intact with the core like that. The leaves are really delicate and soft, and so what I like to do is just grab kind of like the core out of it, and then you can just wash the leaves and use them. Okay, so washed and dried the lettuce leaves, and I kind of, some of the bigger ones tore in half. And then here, it calls for spring onions and radishes, and both of them soaked in water. What that's gonna do is take away some of that bitter spiciness to them. And I suggest doing that anytime that you're ever serving raw shallots, raw scallions, raw onion. Just make sure that you soak it in a little ice water first or pickle it, one of the two. You're gonna get a much better flavor. And these are nice and thin, sliced on the mandolin. I got some seasonal multicolored radishes, and so we're gonna sprinkle those throughout as well. These also have been soaked in the water. And then one thing that I noticed that Joshua does really well is use herbs, and he doesn't really chop the herbs up. He just kind of tears them or leaves them whole. In the introduction of his book, it's one of the things that he really talks about doing is using herbs in that way, and it really brings so much flavor to the dishes. Another thing he does, which is not in this specific dish, but is he always seasons things with vinegar first before the olive oil, which I think is really fascinating. And honestly, that's what I always feel like is missing from a dish, is a vinegar taste. Normally something's missing. So, okay, we got mint in here. That's the herb we're using. And nice roasted, salted sunflower seeds that we're gonna put in there. And then he calls for some breadcrumbs, which obviously he gives directions of how to make your own. Obviously that's not always gonna happen for us. So I have the panko breadcrumbs that I got from the store. And what I'm gonna do with these is I'm just gonna melt a tablespoon of butter, which, you know, he didn't call for. But I think it gives it that nice, like, crunchy, salty kind of crouton taste. I actually prefer using breadcrumbs because when you bite into a crouton, it's like a whole mouth experience. But when you sprinkle toasted, buttered, salted breadcrumbs over a salad, I feel like it really gives you that, you know, every bite, and it doesn't overpower, it kind of just incorporates into the salad. So I've melted the butter, a tablespoon of butter, and I'm just gonna put these in here and kind of toss them around until they brown up a little bit. Okay, so my breadcrumbs are browned up. I just, you know, browned them for about a minute or two. And I'm gonna wait until after I dress the salad to put it on top so that they don't get soggy. But I just put a little salt in there. You wanna make sure you salt every layer of everything, but especially in the salad. So I also added some black pepper and some salt to this creamy dressing. And so you see it's nice and really thin. So the best way, he says, which I agree with, to kind of distribute this is with your hands. So I'm gonna use my hands to just kind of toss together the leaves and the radishes and the herbs. Make sure that every leaf is kind of coated. And this is also why you wanna make sure that your lettuce is really dry, because it's gonna help it coat better with the dressing. So I'm using about half of the dressing that the recipe called for. Okay, final product. This is perfect for summer or spring because you're always grilling out, you're always having people over. It's slice everything, prepare everything in advance, and it takes a few minutes to put together. So you're gonna love this with the pasta.
Okay, here's the butter. I put it in the fridge for about 15 to 20 minutes to harden it a little bit so it's easier to roll into like a log. And here's something else we noticed. We followed the recipe exactly from the cookbook, but we kind of both decided it needs a little salt, and he probably didn't call for salt because pecorino and Parmesan are so salty as is. But we added a big pinch and we think it kind of needs it. So to taste, whatever you feel you want to do. I'm just gonna put it onto some parchment paper, and then you just kind of like smoosh it around a little bit, you know? You can use your hands too, but it's a lot easier last night. I don't know why it's not working today. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just put it where it's easier to store and kind of roll it a little.
That wax paper was so loud.
So loud, and you twist it, and then I labeled it, dated it, and you just put it in a plastic bag.
Put it in a plastic bag because butter absorbs scents from your refrigerator and your freezer, so put it in a plastic bag on top of the wax paper. So there's your butter.